The fastest speed you can achieve in Silksong can be obtained by sprinting with the Silk Speed anklets and the Flea Brew, which is still only 80% faster than a regular sprint. With mods, however, wanna see me touch the wall and come back? Wanna see me do it again? I will beat Silksong at 16 times speed. The game will stay the same, but I am going to be the fastest cockroach to haunt your dreams, hitting instantly but jumping and falling like normal because I'm only a little into S&M. The only rule is that I can't use dash or claw line to replace my running while traversing. I will still use them since this is a Metrovania and platforming and dodging is still an important part of the game. Now, when you're a man with such limitless power, it can be hard to not break the bounds of reality. Like if you go too fast, you can just go through the door, and in areas with hazards, can take damage in some doors. Or you could just teleport? Man, no wonder Flashpoint was made. But something else that makes a challenge is the platforming and combat. There are pros and cons. I like how I can attack at super speed or jump across the arena. But again, this speed is uncontrollable. I have to bash my head into the ledges, which sometimes doesn't work, or I simply instant transmission after I get on the platform. The truly worst part is collision damage. Hornet is the frailest bug in Farloom, having been hospitalized after dropping from blasted steps, and simply cannot handle physical interaction at Mach Jesus. Which is understandable, but infuriating when your sword is not big enough and is too small to even feel, while having to reposition yourself to attack. And then there's turning around. We'll get on that later. Now, after going through the tutorial, I zoomed across Bone Bottom and reached the Marrow. Also, I am using cheats to get rosaries because I am not going to farm for them while I struggle to fight tutorial enemies. And I need maps for my lost ass. So after I bought that from Chakra, I leapt over the entire platform section with my speed and eventually got Silk Spear. So naturally, I went to fight the Bell Beast and got my ass handed to me until I learned that thrusting inside the Bell Beast dealt a lot of damage, and I won on the run that I found out. Afterwards, I made my way to the deep docks, and a lot of the way there was skipped by jumping over this large lava gap, which took me a few tries. I went to do the gauntlet before the forge started. Spamming attacks in the corner and committing lobotomy eventually got me to this bench, so I would feel safe enough to challenge the first boss of the run, Lace. Lace is dashy and oftentimes goes past you. One mask for a bajillion hits isn't too bad, but I get knocked too far back to hit her. And when a tease to the joystick means 3 meters, there was no chance I would hit Lace. I mean, I did get good enough to hit her a few times and even get her into second phase multiple times, but it was too difficult to space. I tried using the string shards to see if that would make anything easier, but no. I tried for 30 minutes before I decided to try something new. The Swift Step was in deep docks as well, and with this, it would be so much easier to hit Lace. So I made my way to get Swift Step, and that meant fighting through a gauntlet, which was quickly taken care of, and there weren't any more obstacles, so I snatched the Swift Step and challenged Lace again. With the combination of better spacing tools, somewhat learning how to control the speed, and getting good, I was able to defeat Lace after a few tries. I zoomed past Farfield, got a wish, completed the wish, and got the Drifter's Cloak, skipped the forced chorus, and immediately went to Greymore. I went through the gauntlet by becoming Antonia and Gazmoniz and making these guys laugh more. Then I breezed through the rest of Greymore, found Garmund and Zaza, and brought him to fight Morwing. Morwing was much easier to fight than Lace, as its arena is very wide with a lot of room to run around in. The charge attack is exploitable and his projectiles simply do not exist to the Quickster. Phase 2 went the same way, and after a bit of a slow fight, I defeated Morwing and went past Belhart to Shellwood. Other than my excellent parkour, Shellwood's first half was easy, but now I reached the point in the story where the later comes into play. Some of the audience may have seen the drifter's cloak moving at regular speed, but that is intentional, because of this one spot here, a required pogo section. Without the drifter's cloak, there is simply no other way to turn around in such a small area so consistently. Thus, I must come here to say that no, there isn't a way for a human to go through this route at 16 times speed. I will not be cheesing the game with the drifter's cloak, so you go with Swift Step and Claw Line, the movement replacement ban. Anyways, I soon reached a crossroad, to fight Sister Splinter or to skip her. I was going to fight Splinter until I remembered the walls, and I immediately went to work to do the skip, which I had to take damage to do, and had to do multiple times because fuck hazards. Here's a montage of me failing over and over again. Until I somehow glitched the game by zooming past the door, dropping, moving around, and respawning past this section, which caused me great pain, so I was able to finish the platforming and get clean grip. I then made my way to Widow, where I learned that wall jumping outside the screen sometimes causes you to get stuck inside the walls and get soft locked. Vertical platforming is still painful as ever, with spikes to make sure that a single flick is going to reset your progress. But the great thing about 16 times speed is that runbacks became so much easier since you can just skip most of it. Anywho, I began my fight with Widow, and it did take a bit of getting used to figure out how the bells bounce and how to properly space and dodge the bells, especially during the third phase. However, it was during this time that I realized the greatest tool of this run, a true MVP. This singular item gave me the most amount of increase in DPS in this run, an unused and forgotten tool, the weighted belt. You see, each time Hornet attacks, there's knockback, and at 16 times speed, that happens pretty quickly, and I would lose around half of the total damage I could have dealt. Furthermore, whenever I bounce into the enemy, the distance that Hornet gets knocked back is barely longer than the range of her needle, so that is another loss in damage that I have retrieved. With this in mind, I went to Pilgrim's Rest in Farfield, purchased it, and after a few attempts and through the absolute mastery of Hornet's movement, was able to defeat the Widow and get Needle in, but only after struggling to do the memory thing for a whole minute. Also, I'm now faster than the Weavers. The next step in the road was the Blasted Steps, and to prepare for the last judge, I upgraded my nail and went to the Shellwood Bellway to start the trek. I reached the boss room only to realize that I forgot to ring the bell in Greymore, so I went all the way back and did a few super jumps to skip the Crow Gauntlet, then rang the bell and came back to fight the last judge, for real this time. Now, the last judge deals 2 hearts of damage during contact, so I now have to play extra careful to not take damage from it. Although now with the weighted belt, I can replenish the entire silk bar during some attacks. The first phase was a breeze, and in some runs, it ended in mere seconds. The real problem came during the second and third phase with the spinning fire wheels, which are almost impossible to dodge. I say almost because I eventually got good enough to dodge it over the course of the 30 minutes of pure attempts. After entering Act 2, I immediately went through the Grand Gate, broke this wall to make my way to the Coral Chambers, where I met Lace. I never knew this interaction existed, but also it's been over 7 months since my last playthrough. Going through the Coral Chamber, I went to the first shrine before heading towards the Cogwork Dancers. The Cogwork Dancers weren't that hard, with me being able to crash myself into them and get a lot of hits. I could zoom around the arena to dodge their attack, but there was one move that I could only dodge with the prayers of RNGesus, Cogwork Configuration. It's written like that in the wiki. I can't move that delicately, but thankfully luck was by my side and I was able to beat the Cogwork Dancers in under 8 minutes. Now I have to collect the 3 melodies. A path that begins into Cogwork Core and a path that will induce pain upon pain. I explored for a bit to get familiar with the surroundings, finding which path was the safest and so on. I eventually went on and tried to make progress until the final jump before the checkpoint. It doesn't seem too hard, but the distance is too big to make with a pogo, but too small to dash and pogo. It's too high up to simply use Drifter's Cloak, and after 30 minutes of doing this parkour, I used cheats to test more easily, and realized that the Hunter's Pogo only works at a certain angle that is most importantly not on the side, meaning that this is maybe possible but not for me, who needs to save my sanity for the real climb of the Architect's Melody. So I went all the way to Greymore and got the Reaper's Crest, and then came back to make this jump. Now there was this monstrosity to go through with 2 jumps at the start and at the end that have 2 gear jumps. The first one can be worked around by dashing pogo, speed blitzing wall jump, and speed blitz again to reach this ledge. You also respawn there if you go above. The middle section is easy to go through, but the last jump had me struggling a bit before I realized that you could wall jump and wait with Drifter's Cloak and then pogo speed blitz. Yet the hardest part about all this was an overlooked section. This tiny jump to the next checkpoint. Usually, you could walk up and jump at the same time to reach the ledge or jump around. But my speed makes me reach the wall before I go max height. Even flicking my Joy-Con back and forth didn't work, meaning that the only way to go around this hangar was to use the cocoon and pogo off of it. But even that doesn't guarantee going up the ledge. So I went back into the lab to try and find the perfect way to position myself to pogo by dying again and again until I made this jump after 15 minutes. In hindsight, that's not too bad compared to Wait, I don't have clawline. Go Whitework, get stuck in the entrance for 5 minutes because you keep glitching through the doors and have to wait for the elevator again. Go to the Underworks, go down this drop, go through the lava platforming, jump and get clawline, do the platforming part 2, beat the gauntlet, go back. This time, however, instead of bashing my head against the wall a few times and then testing things out, I decided to do a bit of research first. Thanks to the work of Raining Chain and Idle Manti, there is a Silksong map with all the platforming. This is the map I've been showing the entire video. Anyways, with this, I could see the layout and plan out what I was going to do. There really wasn't much. It's almost as if they made it so Speedster couldn't blitz their way across the map. which means that this montage was very painful. That took an entire hour of attempts, 2 of which ended right at the finish line, although the platforming wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be. But man, did I have a heart attack when the first few claw lines didn't connect to the last handles. After a bit of problem solving, I got the Architect's melody, and I was going to go after the Vault Keeper's melody next. After going back through the lower clockwork core again, and the spinning wheel, and passing the gauntlet, I entered the Whispering Vaults and went to fight Trobio for the Sacred Cylinder. Trobio's attacks were really fucking hard to dodge, as with sometimes just having nowhere to move, and his nimble movement made it hard to land those stand barrages as he simply moved out of the way. I also switched back to the Hunter's Crest since the Reaper's Crest pushed Trobio too much to do crazy things, and the one move that doesn't move Trobio sends Hornet 6 feet in the air. I was able to safely gap the close with Clawline, but some of his moves made that risky as well, or he just straight up blocked it. His second phase was much faster, and where most of the Think Fast Chocolat comes from. After a lot of attempts, I decided it was time for me to get some upgrades. Unfortunately, my PC didn't have enough storage to save my recording, so the footage of me running around the map is lost to the Hypniptera Shadow Realm. But the upgrades I got were 2 mass shards in Farfield, 1 in Deep Dock, and the 1 in Bone Bottom to give me an extra mask. I tried really hard to find out how to get the 3rd mask in Farfield going all the way around, but then I realized that it's in Act 3. Also kind of sad that the footage of this part was lost since that took a bit of time to do. I got 2 spool fragments in the Deep Docks, 1 in Bone Bottom, 1 in the Underworks, 1 in Grand Gate, 1 in Cogwork Core, and that makes me 1 spool short of being able to do Silk Spear once and then still be able to heal. During this runaround, I also got the Flint Slate and the Injector's Band. I returned back to Trobio where I had a much easier time since the Flint Slate allowed me to dish out more damage during his stunts, which helps tremendously during his second phase where I don't get to get a lot of hits in. Anyways, here's my winning run. In total, including the time to get the upgrades, he took me 4.5 hours to beat, around 2.5 hours without. Trobio himself took up around a quarter of the challenge, like he was the true final boss. Now what do I have next? High Halls? High Halls was actually pretty easy, only taking up like half an hour. Actually probably was an hour including prep time. But anyways, I made my way through the High Halls. This used to be hard, but after playing 12 hours at 16 times speed, I've gotten used to the platforming. Before the gauntlet, I fought Garmond at the top of the Whispering Vaults and got his help for the High Halls, and I got another memory locket to fully max out the Hunter's Crest. I also went and got Threadstorm after going through some questionable platforms. After going through a few different builds and learning that the big dudes can actually reach the corner, I was able to complete the High Halls Gauntlet, earning the Conductor's Melody. Here's a few clips of me doing the gauntlet because I already did like 4 montages in the past 20 minutes. More importantly, the Lace fight is next, and there were a few things I forgot to collect, like the Magnetic Dice and the Hunter's Crest upgrade. Afterwards, I went on to fight her with this build. I got fisted the first few fights as her moveset was too fast for me to just turn around with the Drifter's Cloak, and she also dodged a lot. It was hard to hit through some of her moves, with the straight dash being the safest one, and I also forgot to mention in the last fight, but the arena was extremely annoying to fight in, as running around just leads to face diving into hazard. However, I quickly learned new techs, like if I use my Flint Slate, my knockback is great enough to just knock her back. The wiki didn't tell me this, or the Flint Slate has nothing to do with this. I also started using the wall to turn around, as that is a way faster way than the Drifter's Cloak. Her third phase attacks was actually easier to dodge. I guess that would be because I actually got used to her attack patterns. She only took 15 minutes. All that remained now was Grandmother Silk. Her fight is really easy before her second phase, as all her attacks are very simple to dodge. Except for this binding attack that I have to pray has a safe area in front of me. With the Flint Slate, she is really quickly taken down, sometimes even skipping a phase. Due to this, her fight ended as quick as Lace, taking only 20 minutes, and ending the challenge. This challenge took 16 hours, so thank you for watching. I'm gonna continue to try and do better, so I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. There were also other sections that required the Drifter's Cloak like in High Halls, so if some of the audience found a way to bypass that section in Shellwood, it probably wouldn't matter. I mean, it might. But I guess that's the end of the video, so be safe, have fun, bye.